Ladies and gents, welcome to another episode of Optimize Your Body podcast. I have got one of my legendary clients here today. This is going to be we're gonna switch things up today. I got my man Grady Baker here today. He's over in Phoenix, Arizona, right? That's where you're located
Yep.
in.
Yep. Nice and warm, Phoenix, Arizona.
Fantastic. Now, most of the audience are actually in the States anyway, so they'll know where that is. And
Okay.
speaking of warm there, right? Because you do a lot of cycling, don't you? I know you've
Yes.
toned it down now since the aid cycle you did. Talk us through
Yep.
that, man. How the hell do you like condition yourself in that heat with cycling, man?
Um, I mean, a lot of it is just like consistency, right? Like putting yourself out there, like getting your body used to it is a big, big piece of it. Starting really early in the morning, like starting at like in the 4 a.m. or something like that. Indoors, summer we change drastically. Like basically outdoor training is basically like October through like May. So we're not getting like the true brunt of summer. So kind of you work around it.
Yeah, nice, nice. But yeah, I wanted to share with the audience today. Just, I think it's really helpful for the audience to know really what it takes to achieve what you've achieved. And just for some context, he's lost around about 5 pounds of fat and also gained like 5 pound, 5.5 pounds of muscle. But really, it's all the habits and behaviors, right, Grady, around that. That comes as the side effect of you making lifestyle changes. And ultimately, like you just said off air, then it's just consistency, right? It's not rocket science. But just to give us a bit more of an insight into like your lifestyle and what you do for work and how that looks like for you kind of day to day.
Yeah, totally. So I'm a partner in a marketing agency. I primarily work from home. I travel some, but based on kind of how we work nowadays, I'm sitting in front of a monitor a lot of the time. I'm on Zoom kind of meetings all day long. Sort of lots of meetings, client meetings, internal meetings, things like that. So my sort of 9 to 5 is really packed with like sort of all my meetings and things of that nature. So it's pretty stressful. Lots of deadlines, client demands, things like that. So yeah, the workday is pretty stressful.
And going back to your hobby of yours as well, right? Just to give us a bit of an update on that, you did the like 545 miles right back in June, the aid cycle.
In June, I participated in an event called AIDS Life Cycle. It's a big fundraiser for some local charities in San Francisco and LA. And you basically ride your bike from San Francisco to LA over 7 days. So it's 545 miles, which is a really cool event. It's a great event, but it's also really sort of pushes your body physically and also mentally.
Yeah, big time, man. I got to give you credit for doing that and doing it for a good cause as well. But to track back a bit, right? Because when you started back in November, right, you were fit. Let's be honest, right? Again, cycling is your hobby. You were
Yep.
fit, but the missing piece was obviously the strength training and diet, right? And also some lifestyle stuff we'll talk about as well, which ties in the diet anyway, alcohol, sugar, those kind of things. So
Yeah.
talk us through like where you were at, like back in November, where you were at in terms of how you felt maybe about your body and your health at that point.
Yeah. I felt like it had been sort of on the decline aesthetically. Like I think, well, there's a couple of things. I think aesthetically, I was kind of declining in terms of getting softer in the middle. I mean, I'm 52 years old. I'll be 53 this year. It doesn't get easier. And so like I just seen like my body fat going up slowly increasing and not really being able to figure out how I could get rid of that. I'd also been pretty inconsistent in training. I'd done CrossFit at one point, then we moved, and then I was working out in a gym sort of on my own and was struggling going from CrossFit, where it's like really structured and you have a workout built for you, to then going into the gym and just being like, okay, what do I do now? Tried some trainers, didn't really get like that level of engagement that I liked or was looking for, and was kind of just feeling stuck like last November, to be totally honest.
Hmm. Stuck, right?
Yeah, totally. Like just in a rut. Like I didn't feel good about myself physically. I wasn't feeling good about myself mentally. Like I was frustrated because I felt like I was in a place that I couldn't get out of. And I've noticed it, right? Like I was like, I can see these changes happening. They're not the kind of changes that I want. And I was really just frustrated with it all.
And a big thing for you is also health, right? And heart and stuff like that, right? Because I know you mentioned stuff in.
Absolutely. Yeah, my dad died really young of a heart attack. Like it's important for me. to, I enjoy fitness. I enjoy working out. I enjoy staying active. And yeah, I wanted to do it for health reasons, but, you know, also want to look good too.
Of course, yeah. Who doesn't? Who doesn't? And speaking of looking good, right? So with where you're at, let's get into, because I know a lot of the audience will resonate with this, right? You mentioned at the start, right? The first thing was, I know it was like snacking and that kind of stuff, right? And making not good decisions when you would go hungry and stuff, right? On busy work days and whatnot.
Yeah, totally. Sort of not planning, waiting till the last minute when you're like just starving, and then making a really crappy decision on food of anything that's like quick and that you can just grab. Um, I was actually starting my day, I didn't even realize it, with a lot of sugar and some stuff that was like I thought I needed to eat before I worked out. And sort of you changed my mindset on that and completely changed it. But like I was starting my day with a lot of sugar and a lot of processed food. I just wasn't eating right at all.
Mm. And you mentioned alcohol as well. And that still is a challenge, right? For most people, right? But that was a challenge for you as well, right? It's the social events and family stuff, right?
Totally, stressful job. You're cooking dinner. You're like, hey, let's open a bottle of wine. And before you know it, they're like, oh, well, there's not much left. We might as well finish this bottle. It's a slippery slope. And then, Friday night happy hours and Saturday night going out with friends and Sunday pool parties and stuff like that. Like it can really just start adding up. And I think that's what was happening too.
Mm. So how have you managed to make those changes then? Because another thing, and what I got to give you credit for as well as actually asking for help when you need it. You know what I mean? Because I remember one time you were going away for a weekend and you were like,
Yeah.
guys, any suggestions on what to do here? I'm going away. I want to enjoy myself, but I don't want to eat like an asshole, as we say, right? At OYB.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. No, I think like just some of like the little tips that you gave me about like trying to fill up on protein, like really thinking about again like how I start my day, like not starting my day with like these super sugary like supplements that I didn't need. Um, Thinking about really prioritizing protein, thinking about like limiting things like sort of sugar. Like, yeah, I'm not going to completely deprive myself, but like okay, how can I make sort of a better choice around that? So I think it's about making choices. And then I think the other big thing that you sort of taught me is there's going to be moments when you slip up. And I think before, like, all this like guilt would come in of like, oh my God, you totally screwed up. And then it just makes you feel even worse, right? Like you're like, oh my God, I ate like a total asshole yesterday. And like you feel like shit about yourself. So then you're like, oh, I'm going to eat even worse today. And I think that idea of being like, hey, just like let it go. Like you may have had a bad day. It's not the end of the world. You're going to be okay. Make your next choice a better choice. And I think that's really sort of helped my mindset as well.
That's a big one, man. That's such a big one, isn't it? Because it's so easy to hit the off button, right? When you slip
Oh
up.
my, yeah, because you're just like frustrated with yourself, right? And like you just like, I mean, I've learned this through therapy. It's like we're so hard on ourselves always, right? Like we're harder on ourselves than anybody else is on us in most cases. And I think that was really an impact on like missing a workout or messing up with food or something like that. And I think when you learn to sort of let go of that, it changes your perception big time.
100%. And like you just mentioned, then is hitting rather than subtracting and taking things away, it's adding things in, right? Like he hasn't mentioned about, oh, what I did is I stopped doing this, I stopped eating sugar, I stopped doing that, because realistically, it doesn't work, right? You've added
Right.
protein in, for example, and better quality foods and changing your breakfast. Okay, let's talk about that. I think that's a big thing where people struggle with is they don't have enough protein for breakfast. They
Yeah.
generally have nothing, like you said, sugar and processed foods. They might have a little
Right.
bit of protein for lunch, then they have a lot for dinner, but they're grossly under eating protein, most people. So that's been a
Yeah.
game. You're the man for beef, eggs, and avocado, right? In the mornings.
Totally, totally. I go through a lot of eggs in our house. Pretty much every time, if me and my husband says, what do we need at the store? I always say eggs. So yeah, lots of eggs. We've got in the habit of like making burger patties, having stuff like that. Avocado. Sort of starting your day off like that puts me in such a better place, just to make better choices throughout the day. I also sort of either do meal planning or I've worked with a meal planning service so that I have lunch here at home so that I'm not, so it's planned out so that I'm not like, it's 12 o'clock and I'm starving and there's nothing in the house. And then I'm going to like DoorDash something that's crappy.
You said it right at the start, right? Pre-planning. It's the key. People always, I'm too busy. come on, like it's bullshit. People think they can just wing it, right? No, you can enjoy yourself, right? You can, but you've already, like, let's just say for the week, right? Like 95% of the time, you're making better decisions, right? You're having your breakfast most days, high protein, fills you up. You got your lunchtime meal prepared. Even those two simple things done consistently Monday to Friday make a massive difference.
Totally, totally. And I think it's just that like it's that mindset of like deciding you're going to do it. I mean, like, okay, this is what I'm doing. And like I've got the tools that I need and I'm just going to do it. And it's sort of like, I'm a morning workout person. So I don't even like it's not even a question in my head of like I get up and I go work out. Like it's thought of the night before, like it's in my head, it's just in my mindset of like I'm going to do it. And like I'm just not going to skip. Like you're just going to do it. And I think it's all about mindset on things of like things like that of like I'm going to make a better decision. I'm going to figure out a better way to do it.
Such a good point, because all of my highest performing clients, obviously including yourself, they all train first thing in the morning, and I'm exactly the same. I don't know about you. I absolutely hate the thought of having to train in the evening. It's all day. You're thinking about, I got to train later, I got to train. Then you got to plan your food around it. Like if you get up and it's not even a thought, like you said, it's done and it's puts you in the right mindset. And then you
Yeah.
make that decision with food.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it feels like you've gotten your day started on a great point. And like, I've talked to people too who are like, oh, I struggle in the morning. I'm like, pack your gym bag the night before. Have everything ready so that take all those obstacles out of your way. And I've been at the point where I've been doing it so long, but like it's not that big of an issue for me. But it also helps of like, okay, like say it's Friday night and you're doing happy hour with your friends. And you're kind of like mentally like, if I'm going to work on a Saturday morning, I already know that. So I know I'm going to sort of limit myself a little bit too of like, okay, I've had enough margaritas because I got to get up and work out in the morning. Like, so I think things like that too, like, again, it's just mindset of like, this is non-negotiable. Like I'm getting up in the morning and I'm working out.
Non-negotiable habits. That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah.
People say that, but then they end up making them negotiable then after after a few margaritas. Okay, I'll take the non out of that word and make it negotiable.
Yeah, totally. I know. I know. But yeah, the idea of like, if I worked out at the end of the day, you've got all day long to talk yourself out of it. And then I don't know, just at the end of the day too, I tend to be kind of fried, honestly, like just from work. And I just personally, yeah, working out in the morning, it feels like it's a game changer for me.
Massive game changer. But then that comes down to pre-planning again. We go back to the same thing. I'm exactly the same. I leave nothing to chance. Even this morning, I didn't train this morning. I went for a swim instead, and I got my swimmers out, my towel, everything. Because otherwise, you get up and it's like you can make excuses for anything when you get up because
For sure.
everything's a drag. Just getting out of bed sometimes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's there.
No,
It's good to
totally.
go, but also sleep, right? Because let's be honest, you got to sleep at like 9 p.m.,
Yeah. Like I start
9:30
kind of
maybe.
winding down like 8:30. In summer's different because in the summer I get up earlier because it's hot in Phoenix. So my schedule shifts a little bit. But yeah, like 8:30, I start winding down. Like I try to be in bed by 9, like to really the Oura Ring has made a big difference in terms of helping me really, and again, it's about being mindful. Like, and it's just another tool, I think, in your sort of arsenal of helping you be more mindful about making better choices.
Definitely that aura ring, right? It's a game changer. It's just like when you track your food at the start, you became more aware of food, and then you're more
Yeah,
aware of sleep. And you're very, I know what you're like. You're kind of competitive as well, aren't you? You're like a type A kind of
totally.
person where you're like, I've got to beat that score. You know what I'm saying?
Totally. Yeah, for sure. And like I said, I mean, like, yeah, you generally know, like, if you're really tired, like if you didn't get a good night's sleep, but it, again, I think it's like another tool in sort of your toolbox of helping you realize of like, hey, yeah, also like a big thing is like if I do drink too much at night, I can see the impact on my sleep. Like I don't sleep well. My heart rate, my HRV, it like stays elevated longer. Like it takes longer for it to come down at night. My rest scores aren't as good. So like it also just like adds those proof points. So like if you're sort of like in your head a little bit, like it gives you those proof points of like, no, you know this is a bad decision and you got data to back it up that it's a bad decision.
100%. I'll be honest, right? Tracking sleep. I had a whoop before the aura, then I switched. But just the alcohol thing, it definitely changed my relationship with alcohol because I realized the damage even after one or two drinks. I'm like, is this thing broke or something? I'm going to send this thing back. You know what
I
I mean?
know. Seriously. Like, no, you can totally see the impact on it of like what it does in terms of like how much longer it takes for your HRV to go down. Like, yeah, it's pretty impactful and it's hard to argue with. Like, so like you can kind of like, oh, if you didn't have that, you could be like, oh, I didn't sleep good, but maybe it was because of this or that. Like, you've got the data there with that Aura Ring, so you kind of know it.
Can't believe you're on bullshit, can you, with that Oura Ring?
Exactly. Yeah, totally.
That's quality. So yeah, awareness is big, right? So everything Grady's talked about here is having that awareness is always the first step. The other thing is discipline. Discipline is something you can't really teach. You can't really hand that to someone, right? Discipline, the results you've had, which we'll get into, is all been from you channeling that discipline which you already have. You know, like anything, how you do anything is how you do everything, right? To get to where you're at with your business, right? We were just talking off
Right.
here. It's taken a lot of work, a lot of discipline, right? And the thing is, a lot of people, you probably come across this with friends or people you know, they put the work in, they get to a really good place in their career, and they can clearly show they can achieve things, but they don't put that same level of energy and structure and discipline into their health. You know, don't know if you
Right.
ever see that.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. I think, for me, it's about showing up, right? I think my parents taught me that really young of like, you need to just show up. Like, in terms of like, you may not always be the smartest person in the room, but a lot of times, like, it's about showing up and being there. And I think that comes to a lot of different places in your life, showing up for your job, showing up for your relationships, like being there when it counts. And then also like being there for yourself and showing up for yourself in terms of, you know, working with you is an investment. I see it as an investment in myself, and I'm not going to like, just sort of not show up on that.
100%. Yeah, your commitment level as well. Like, 'cause I've always had mentors over the last, say, 5 years. I've had mentors in business, and
Yeah,
I pay a lot of money, and money talks, right? Let's be honest, right? You pay the
totally.
money, your commitment level goes up.
Yeah,
Mine
for sure. You're like, I'm making an investment in this. I'm making an investment in myself. I'm not going to, just throw that away. I want to, and I think that's the thing about like, that's really cool about the training is like, there are days when you're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to get up and go to the gym, but like, I'm not really feeling it. I'm kind of dragging or something, but you show up. And a lot of times, like, I love the app because it'll come out and it'll be like, 4 new PRs. And I'm like, where the hell did that come from? But it's
does.
just, when you show up, like things happen, you know what I mean? And like, if you don't show up, those things aren't going to happen. I know it sounds silly, but it's really simple.
It's very simple, and it's crazy how much of our own bullshit we believe. People say I haven't got time, and you look at. I've done this before, right, Grady? I've called people
Yeah.
out, and I've checked their screen time. It's like 3 hours
Yeah.
on Facebook. Okay, but you haven't got time to go. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Oh, you're staying up all night watching Netflix. So yeah.
Exactly, exactly, 100%. But yeah, let's get into that. So in terms of, so we talked about, time. I wanted to just one quick one on that. Again, we can give people all the time management tips like we want, right, Grady, to get in the shape we've got into. But without discipline, it's worthless. But with how you manage your schedule, right? Because I know you work 9 to 5, you're flat out all day. So would you on the weekend, for example, would you take a look at what your week's looking like and have a bit of
Yeah,
structure?
for sure. Sort of plan around that, make sure that I've got like pockets of time, like kind of keeping an eye on like, do I have early morning meeting start times that I need to shift my workout a little bit earlier or something like that. So yeah, definitely sort of like having a moment on Sundays where I can kind of like take a look, plan out my week, kind of figure out what I'm going to do. If I'm going to do any kind of cycling in there, I really love the band workouts on my off days when I'm not in the gym. So like I'm a creature of habit too. So I love like, okay, I know that I'm lifting on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I got my band sessions. Okay, let's figure out if I'm going to do anything else in between. So yeah, I love like that kind of like usually like Sunday, I'll kind of like take a scan and just kind of create a plan for the week.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. So with the muscle you gain, right? The band sessions you just touched on then. Let's go through what you've been doing, right? You've changed your relationship with training as well, right? Because going from CrossFit to training full body is a different mindset, right? You
For
sometimes don't feel
sure.
like you're doing enough at the start, do you? You're like, oh, am I pushing hard enough?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I'm not sweating enough. Like, I'm not worrying that I'm not doing enough cardio. That was a big one for me to trust you on, was like, figuring out that I was probably doing too much weight. I was doing too much cardio in the beginning. And so, just chasing something, right? And I think, right, really kind of having that plan, trusting you in that plan, was a really, really good thing and kind of changed my relationship to training completely. And the bands have been awesome too. That was another trust point of like, oh, what are these bands? Like, what am I doing with these bands? Like, and then like the bands work, period.
100%, man. They work. And it's one of them ones where it takes time as well. Like you said then, you said again, didn't you, off air? Like, at first I was like, oh man, when are these results coming? But then it just
Yeah.
kicks in when you're consistent for longer periods of time. And it's that first 3 months, you're just kind of building the foundation, right?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, you got to trust the process, I think is what it comes down to. And just, stick with it, be consistent, and you just got to trust like your body's it's gonna react to it. Give it some time.
100%, yeah. And just to be clear, obviously you still built a good few pounds of muscle within that first 90 days and your body responded, but then you went to whole new levels. But cardio and weights, right? I want to touch on this. I talk about this all the time. So talk, because lots of people in the audience, they'll be like, okay, yeah, I have the same thing. I just can't stay away from cardio. I see it all the time. They want to improve the way their body looks aesthetically, but they just can't. And I call them, because I used to be this as well, cortisol junkies, right? Essentially, you're chasing a feeling, you're chasing that high, which is great, amazing, mental health, all for it. But aesthetically, it doesn't work if you overdo it, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's also like just chasing like these patterns that you've been taught. Like everybody's been sort of like drilled into your head of like cardio, cardio, cardio for fat burning. And so I think like when you start to doubt yourself a little bit of like, oh, maybe I ate too much, too many chocolate chip cookies the other day. I should go for a run and run that off. Or like, oh, I've been like, maybe I've been slipping up. I should pull in some cardio. Like that was always, and for me personally, like so drilled in of like cardio, cardio, cardio. So like breaking that habit has been a really good thing.
Yeah, that's
My body feels so much better, honestly. Like, I think I was talking to somebody, a friend was asking me this past weekend. He was like, would you ever do CrossFit again? And I was like, honestly, at my age, no. I was like, I was really hurting my body doing CrossFit. I was trying to keep up with a bunch of younger bros who had like a totally different athletic background. I loved the community aspect of it, but it was too much trying to keep up with other people, lifting too heavy and doing advanced movements too fast. I was hurting myself consistently. Like I did not feel good. And so like, yeah, this has been sort of a game changer for me.
that's awesome. Yeah, your lower back, man, that was in a bad way, wasn't it?
Everything, my
Really bad
back,
way.
my shoulder, like it was always something that was coming up. And luckily it wasn't major. It was like minor things, but it was just like nagging. It was kind of like your body like telling you, like, dude, like this isn't right. Like this isn't what your body was made for.
Good job you listened to it, man. I'm telling you, that would have been a bad. Because the thing is, you've got to look ahead as well, right? You're 52 now, and
Yeah.
you put in yourself. People always need to look like 10 years ahead. That's what I'm doing now. Even okay, I'm 37. I want to 47, going up to 50. I want to be on top form. And to do that,
Yeah.
you've got to be smart, right? You got to go, okay, what's this going to do 10 years from now? What position is that going to
Yeah,
put me in? Out of
for
action,
sure.
and
For
probably
sure.
overweight as a
So
result
like
of that.
yeah, totally. And I feel like having like a strong foundation of like going into these years that I'm in with a lower percentage of body fat, everybody knows that's good for you, for your heart, Alzheimer's, like everything, like, but also then going in with like a really strong foundation of muscle, feeling like it's really good for my bone density, feeling like it's really good for just like my overall body. Like, yeah, really excited about that.
100%. And it's the number one thing for longevity as well, strength, right? How strong
Yeah.
you are, physically strong. They do like a grip strength test. But also cardio, for your heart as well is obviously in lungs and cardiorespiratory system really important. But strength training is way more important. So let's talk through that then, because the audience will probably know now that we haven't talked once about restricting calories, right? What we've
Right.
done is you mentioned the band sessions, the training, you do a bit of cycling, but you're active as well, right? So that's one thing I wanted to say as well. So in the morning you get up and train, and generally, will you get how many steps will you get in before you kind of started work? Not a massive amount, but a few thousand.
Yeah, decent amount. Like I usually I get up and take my dogs for a walk. So I usually walk about a mile, then I go to the gym. And then, yeah, during the day, I try to kind of walk around, depending, but yeah, if I can get like 10,000 steps in a day too, like I try to stay active, at least
Awesome.
move.
Yeah, yeah. So that keeps the calorie output high. And then on top of that, by doing strength training, right? Strength training and the bands as well. What that does is that speeds your metabolism up. And again, it increases the calorie output. It gets your
Yeah.
body burning more calories by itself. So that's the approach for anyone. They need to basically, number one, you can't avoid the fact that you're gonna have to eat good, you're gonna have to eat whole foods. Like for example, if you give us an insight, right? Your diet, is probably at least kind of 90%, at least 90% last time I checked, whole foods, right? Like single ingredient foods,
Yeah.
maybe at
Yeah,
least.
totally. Yeah, like we're big on like throwing something on the grill. So like grilling like a protein, doing like something like if I'm gonna do like a really big salad, like avocado, lots of fresh vegetables, like protein in a big salad is like a no-brainer for dinner. Feel really good about that. Add in some avocado. Sometimes do like a roasted sweet potato or some roasted broccoli or something like that. But
Beautiful.
like, yeah,
Yeah, amazing. No, that's it. And that's it. Having salad and you enjoy that, right? You look forward to it because you're
Totally.
face full with volume, potatoes, broccoli, veggie salads, and then you've got the protein as well, which is beautiful. Like, and a
Yeah,
lot of people, they might not even, well, I think a lot of people listen to this, they do enjoy those foods, whole foods anyway. But some people are, oh man, it doesn't sound really nice. Once you've done it for like a few weeks or whatever, and you start feeling better and looking better, and you
right.
just naturally get in tune with those signals and you enjoy those foods.
Yeah, totally. You just you make it a habit, right? Like part of that is habit too, and like you just learn how to make better choices, and you make them. You stay off those certain aisles of the grocery store. Like you don't need anything down there. Like I kind of hit the produce department, hit the meat department, and like get out of there.
That's the way, isn't it? You got to be smart.
Yeah.
But no, I was going to say, in terms of the results that you've had, right? So talk us through where you're at now with your physique, how you feel about your body in comparison to like where you were at. And I know people are noticing, right? The other day, right? The doctor basically accused you of being on steroids, but you taking testosterone supplements. Love it.
Yeah, totally. No, it's been really cool. Like, I definitely feel like a massive change in sort of like how over the past, 9 months, my body has shifted. I feel, like I said, I don't have all the aches and pains that I did before. Of like my lower back doesn't bother me. I think like the dynamic warm-ups that I do before my workout are awesome. Like they keep me mobile, they get me prepped for my workout, and I feel really ready when my workout starts. Um, but then yeah, like I feel more confident in my body. Like I feel good. Yeah, I feel good. I like the way it looks, so it's working. And I like that the workouts shift up too. Like we kind of go through different phases, and um I get the app is really motivating for me. Being able to see kind of what I did last time and being like, okay, can I do one more rep? Okay, can I add like 5 more pounds to this? And figuring out how I can keep pushing myself is super motivating too.
Comes back to the data again, doesn't it? What gets measured can get managed, right?
Totally, totally. And then you get that nice little like so PR's badge at the end of your workout. And you're like, okay, I can drop that in the WhatsApp thread and kind of show off a little bit. So that's fun.
Definitely, definitely. What does that feel like then, man? Being confident in your body. Let's say you go to the pool party, you just had summer. How does that feel? And I know there's always going to be, let's be honest, we always compare ourselves to others, right? There's always going to be
Totally.
ups and downs, but generally, what does that feel like? Just for
I,
guys
I,
listening now, they're like, man, I want to get in that shape. I want to take my shirt off at the pool party, like Grady. You know what I'm saying?
it's about like, yeah, it's about trying to be the best version of you, right? Like that's how I see it. Like, yeah, I'm not going to look like you. Like, I'm not going to have the abs like you. But like for me, I'm like, I want to be the best version of me. And I think I kind of learned that I used to do running, right? I ran some races, and somebody one time told me, I was like, oh, I was kind of beating myself up of like, oh, look at that guy. He just passed me. He looks really strong. And they were like, dude, that guy may have just started his run and you might be 5 miles into your run. Like you never know what you're comparing yourself to, so it's pointless. And so the idea of like, yeah, being able to take my shirt off at a pool party or something like that and feel like, or even just like taking my shirt off after a workout and looking in the mirror and be like, I freaking like with that. Like I feel good about that. I feel like it's a good version of me is what's important to me.
Best version of yourself, right, Grady?
Yeah, totally. Progress, not perfection.
Love that, man. Love that. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's literally
Yeah,
the journey.
yeah, totally. And you learn so much on that journey about, okay, it doesn't have to all be perfect. I'm not going to be perfect to the point of like, hey, let it go. You make a mistake, let it go. Keep moving on. Like it's about kind of that's the fun thing I think about doing things like this is that you learn a lot that you can apply in so many different aspects of your life. Like this isn't just about working out, right? Like that discipline, that commitment, that showing up, that making better choices, like that's not just about working out. Like that's not just about the gym. Like that applies to so much in your life that can make you successful.
That is such a good point. It bleeds over into every area, doesn't it? Your relationships, your professional life. I'm sure you've noticed, right? When you've got more energy, and that's what keeps you going, right? I always say to people, like, oh, 2 decades you've been lifting for, like, the willpower. And I'm like, it doesn't feel like that. It's actually enjoyable to us. People don't
Right.
understand that. Self discipline becomes enjoyable when you've done it long enough.
Right. Yeah, totally. Absolutely. It's about the choices you make and that you continue to make. And you're like, okay, this is how I live my life. Like this is what I know works for me. Like I need to do this for my physical well-being, my emotional well-being. Like this is what is right for me. And I think that's where you sort of like cross that line into like making this a core part of your life and how you live.
Mm. And mental and emotional health, right? That's what keeps you going, like gets you really out of bed in the morning, right? It's like brushing your teeth, right? I can't not brush my teeth. You know what I mean? I got to go to the gym. It's the same thing.
Yeah,
Like I need
yeah,
that for my mental
absolutely.
health.
Yeah, totally. And then trying to figure out like, that idea of like, I want to be a better version of myself. Like, and there's always like room for improvement. And so figuring out like, how can I get a little bit stronger? How can I show up better? How can I make better choices? Like constantly like testing yourself to try to figure out like, how can I improve? I think is really motivating as well.
100%, 100%. Look, man, that was so much gold in there for the audience. And look, it's
Cool.
not, it's not rocket science, is it? But it's a case of what I wanted to mention one thing, 'cause I know what most people struggle with is social influence, right? So
Yeah.
let's say you would, because the thing is, you're making good decisions for the most part. So you then have more wiggle room. People like they go, oh, how does he? Well, 95% of the time he's making good decisions, right? Just because he had that one week, one day with family or whatever, he's straight back to it. And that's the key thing in there. But how do you navigate that? So do you ever notice any peer pressure or social influence plays a part or
Oh, totally, totally. I think surrounding yourself by people who are like-minded is it helps a lot. So yeah, it doesn't necessarily help to, if you're hanging out with a bunch of people who have zero commitment to making a better version of themselves, like that's not really going to be probably a good fit for you in terms of motivating you. I think surrounding yourself by like-minded people is big, but I think it's also about, and again, so many things, like it's about setting boundaries for yourself of like, okay, like I know what I'm going to do. I'm confident, like, this is the boundary for me of like, yeah, we can go out and have a good time, but I'm going to bed because I got to get up early tomorrow morning and train. And that's what I want to do. And that's my boundary. So I think, again, like something that I can apply, setting boundaries is healthy. And so that can be something that you can really use in your social life to help fuel. And I think other people react really well to that. Like it fuels other people. And there can be other people who are like, you know what? You really helped me because you know what? I stopped drinking too, and I got up in the morning and I went to the gym too, and I felt great. You're like, that's awesome. Like, let's figure out how to do this together or like motivate each other. And so, yeah, I think setting healthy boundaries is a good thing, and it can also influence people in your friend circle to be able to set healthier boundaries for themselves as well.
love it, man. Love it. Yeah. And non-negotiables in this. Like, look, this is non-negotiable for me tomorrow. I'm communicating that. And then if someone pushes, then they're basically taking the piss. You know what I'm
Totally,
saying? You set the
totally.
boundary, right?
Yeah, and you're like, cool, peace out.
Yeah, peace out. I love it. And it's like what you've touched on there, right, as well, because it is, we all know that, right? You gotta grab a behavior, whatever behavior that is. Let's just say I'm gonna have protein for breakfast, right? I'm gonna have a whole food meal for breakfast, like Grady did. Bang. That's one behavior. You do that enough, it becomes repetition, then it turns into a habit. And that's what it is. It's turning behaviors into habits. Training first thing in the morning, right? And maybe that'll take, a few months, whatever, different for everyone. But I cement that into a habit. But it's identity. Everything Grady's talked about here is the way he wants to become the best version of himself. Is how he identifies himself. He identifies himself as someone who is fit. You are a fit person. You're a person who just goes to the gym, and that's just what you do, right? Because that's Grady. It's part of who
Yeah,
you are, and that's what it's that's what it needs to be, right? It's like
yeah,
upgrading your identity, kind of.
totally. And I think it's about like that idea of like I want to take care of myself. Like I am like, yeah, I take my fitness level important because it's about me being physically, emotionally, it's about me taking care of myself, period. And so and prioritizing myself. And so I think that's really what it's about. What people kind of see is like, oh, he's really dedicated to this because he's dedicated to taking care of himself.
And you can't serve from an empty vessel, man. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Absolutely not. Nope.
Yeah. So I would actually argue it's kind of like it's selfless. I always argue this point. It's not selfish when you put yourself first. It's selfless because you show up better for everyone else.
No, absolutely. Like if I go to the gym in the morning and I get a good workout in, I feel better. I'm able to come and be a better employee at work. My mind is clear. I've had a great workout. I'm in a good headspace to kind of get things in, come in, be positive, be motivating my team, working with clients, and then also be a better partner at home because I feel good about myself and I'm happy and I'm motivated. I'm not in a funk. So yeah, it impacts all aspects of your life.
Last thing I wanted to ask you, man, what advice would you give to the Grady? Let's just say a month before you started the program back in October, you talked about what you struggle with. What advice would you give to that person
Oh,
about getting in shape and getting healthy and feeling better about themselves?
yeah, I think it's about trust the process, totally. And it is commit to it and trust the process. And if you stay consistent, it's going to work. And yeah, you're going to have bad days. You're going to have days when you're like, this isn't exactly like I've got a mental idea of what I want to be seeing, and you're not going to see it, or you may not feel great, or you may be tired or whatever. But if you trust the process and you commit to it consistently, it's going to work. Simple.
It's simple. And when you look at the shape Grady's in, I'm going to share the before and after anyway on the, I think on the graphic, man, it's insane. And, but yeah, when you look at the physique, it is really just mental fortitude, right? Everyone knows this, but it's the discipline and consistency we've talked about. It's also a lot of patience involved, right? Which is the big
Sure.
one people struggle with.
Totally. It's not going to happen overnight, and I think, if I had something to tell other people too, I'd be like, don't wait till you're like 52 to do something like this. Like, yeah, you can do it at 52, but like, do it when you're young too is like a big piece of it as well. But yeah, I mean, you're never too old to do it. But yeah, trust the process and put in the work, and hard work works.
Definitely. It works when you work, and you got the testosterone levels of a fucking gorilla now anyway, so you're good. Even though you're 52.
Naturally.
Chimpanzee testosterone over there, bloody hell.
Totally. Totally.
Hey, gold, man. Really, really appreciate that, and
Yeah.
really enjoyed that chat, Grady. So thanks
Awesome.
for all the
Thank you.
insights and the gold you
Good
shared
talking to
with the
you.
audience. Yeah, you too,
For
man.
sure. Thanks a
We'll
lot.
speak soon, Grady.